Most of the great artists that I admire and have studied are artists who fit into one of two categories. Those who became famous at a young age, who maybe didn't develop their skill set as over a long period of time, but still achieved fame. And those who spent a great deal of time learning skills and then became famous near the end of their life. And that was the premise of a book that came out a few years ago by an author and scholar named David Gallinson. If you haven't read this book, I don't know if it is for artists, but it's an interesting study titled Old Masters and Young Geniuses, The Two Life Cycles of Artistic Genius. He kind of divides artists into two categories. And I want you to think about how you fit into these categories or don't, and save your thoughts for the question answer period at the end, because this could be controversial. He says there are two different kinds of artists, two very different types of artists. Those I call old masters who work by trial and error and tend to improve with age, and conceptual people or young geniuses who generally do their best work early in their careers. So if you had to put this in pop music, he would say, okay, there are people like the Rolling Stones, Radiohead, gosh, you put in a lot of people who they've been working at it for decades and they've really honed their craft. They're the old masters. It took them a long time to get where they are. And then there are those who are the one-hit wonders. There are those who come on an innovation and they don't necessarily develop or move on from that innovation. They're known for that early thing that they did, that one-hit wonder. And both are legitimate ways to immortality, to being famous, to being known. If we had to think of an artistic example, you'll probably know who did the one on the left and maybe the one on the right, I'm sure. But the one on the left, Georges Seurat, would have been what he would have called the young genius, the innovator. And on before I move on to the one on the right, to Claude Monet, Seurat died at the age of 31. And his big idea that he contributed to art was what we now call divisionism, but what his time was called pointillism. He didn't really move beyond that. He didn't have much time to move beyond that. He developed the idea, took the art world by storm. We still talk about him now, died at the age of 31. On the other hand, Monet, who started off as an academic figurative artist, who developed his career in doing impressionism over his lifetime and died at the age of 86, was able to spend a life working on that skill set, developing his arsenal. Both made him immortal. Would Monet have been famous if he had died at 46? Maybe. I mean, it's an academic argument. All of this is an academic, abstract argument on some level. But I want you to think about these people while I go through. And I do want to give a plug here for a book that I've recently read called Desperately Young, Artists Who Died in Their 20s. It was done by Angela Jones and Vern Swanson, recently published by a British publishing company. And that book, I was shocked at how many artists in their 20s I recognized the names of who fit into this young geniuses category, and how they had made major contributions that led to leaps and bounds in the development of art, but whose careers were tragically cut short one way or another. So that's one way of thinking about this idea, how you become immortal. Do you become immortal through developing such an arsenal that you're a master at the craft and widely recognized by other artists and by critics and by audiences as being the top of the pyramid? Or are you somebody who comes up with a great new fresh idea that takes everything by storm and becomes culturally relevant for a moment, or even leads to other ideas, and then you go out like a flame? But there's another way to think about this idea of what your legacy is as an artist. And that's what I like to call the best laid plans problem, which is there are artists who are very famous who think that their legacy is going to be one thing and it's another thing. What are you as an artist going to be known for in your career versus what will you actually be known for in your career? So we're going to play a game, and I just want you to, you can keep say the answer out loud to yourself, but I'm going to give you an image and you're going to have to think about who is the artist that made this work. And I hope I'm going to surprise you here. So this is the work that this artist believed was going to make him immortal. It was going to be the work he was known for. As you can tell, it is a monumental horse sculpture made in bronze. At the time it was made, it was the largest bronze statue that would have been made since antiquity. And so on a technological level, it was a huge leap forward. Scale, it was a huge, an ambitious project that would have grabbed attention. It was sadly a work of art that was melted down to make cannons for war. And the artist who thought this was going to seal his name was Leonardo da Vinci, called El Gran Cavallo. Now, this work is a reproduction that was done in 2011. There are now 3 or 4 of these around the world. But what is Da Vinci known for? He's known for the Mona Lisa. Da Vinci only did, depending on how you count it, between 19 and 24 finished works of art. And why is the Mona Lisa the one we remember him? I doubt that he would have even put it in the top 10 works that he had made, because he had taken this with him near the end of his life to France, where he died. And it happened to be in the French collections. It was not famous up until it was stolen in 1911 for the 3rd time. That, the Mona Lisa became the most famous painting perhaps in the world. Not because Da Vinci thought it was the greatest work that he had made, not because it was the greatest work that he made, but because of public relations, because of marketing, because of historic events around it. He would probably be embarrassed that we think the Mona Lisa, or the public thinks that the Mona Lisa is the masterpiece that it's widely considered to be compared to his other works. He'd want the horse. Okay, here's another artist that I have censored for very good reason. This was an artist who had a sterling reputation, who was going to be he was the inheritor of Raphael's workshop. He was going to be the next greatest artist after Raphael, until he decided to make a series of pornographic images that were the equivalent of the Kama Sutra for a cardinal in Rome. And when he did it, it overshadowed all the other work that he created, and he was banished from Rome. I think he was even excommunicated for a time, but it's the work that he became known for. It's not Marcantonio Raimondi, it's Giulio Romano. The paintings have been destroyed, I believe, and all we have left are the etchings. But this is the work he would have wanted to be known for doing Raphael-esque religious devotional images. But instead, he kind of threw his reputation into the more promiscuous, licentious work, the prurient work of the side of art. That's what he actually is immortal for.